Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa amma ba'd. Previously we discussed things that do not break the fast. So inshallah today we will be discussing about the things that do break our fast, and if these things were to happen for whatever reason, a person will have to do qada and not kafara. So he will just have to repeat the fast itself, meaning fast another day, make up for it, and they will not have to do any kafara or expiation for it. Number one is, if a person forcefully put something in a fasting person's mouth and it went down the throat, then the fast will become invalid. Qada will only be wajib. Now, someone may think, well, there are people who do that at schools, and when people get bullied, there are people who get into fights. There's other things that happen, that may or may happen at school. Children who are baligh, they are 15, 16, they, if they get bullied and they're in an environment where there are non-Muslims, so people forcefully say, I want you to eat this. I have personally seen it happen. So things can happen like that. If something like that does happen, even though you've been forced to eat something, know that that is unfortunate, but your fast has broken. You will have to make up for it at a later time, inshallah. If someone knows that they are fasting, but when gargling water accidentally it goes down the throat, then qada will also become wajib. This will break your fast, meaning subconsciously they are aware that they are fasting. They are not forgetting, they know, but it's a mistake. So they were putting water into their mouth and accidentally they coughed or they sneezed or something, or just they lost control and the water went down the throat. Even though it is not, you didn't do it purposely, but you were aware that you were fasting. In that case, you will have to make up for that, and qada will be wajib. The next one is that the fast does not break if one vomits unintentionally, irrespective of the amount. However, if someone vomits intentionally and it was a mouthful, then the fast is broken. And if it is less than that, then the fast will not break. So some people have this habit, they probably ate too much for suhoor, or they have this sickness where they make themselves vomit in order to lose some weight or something. When people who do stuff like that after suhoor and they vomited a mouthful, know that your fast has been broken. But if it's just a little bit, the fast will not break. The next one is that a small amount of vomit came out, but it went back down the throat on its own. So it's a hiccup, through a hiccup or something, the fast will not break. However, if the person swallowed it intentionally, his fast will break. So sometimes you have a cough or a hiccup where something came up and then automatically went down. It was out of your control. In that case, the fast will not break. But if someone just swallowed it back in purposely, their fast will break. So this is a self-judgment that one will have to make. The next one is if someone vomited and assumed that the fast was broken. So someone vomited less than a mouthful and they thought, well, my fast is now broken, and due to that one just starts eating and drinking. Then qada will be wajib and no kafara will be required. The fast will break if a person had something stuck in their teeth and they swallowed it after removing it with their tongue or toothpick. If it was more than or equal to the size of a chickpea, this will break their fast. If it was smaller than that, the fast will not break. If a person was to remove it from their mouth and then swallow it, then irrespective of the size, the fast will break. So you have three scenarios here. One is that you removed something with a toothpick and it was smaller than the size of a chickpea. You swallowed it because it was in your mouth from before. Your fast will not break. But if it was bigger than the size of a chickpea, then your fast will break. That is the second scenario. And the third scenario is that you took it out of your mouth, and it doesn't matter what size it is, you put it back in, your fast will not break. If a person swallowed blood that came from the teeth and the quantity of blood was more than the saliva, then qada will only be wajib. The fast is now broken. Someone ate forgetfully. So someone ate something and they didn't remember that they were fasting, and then they thought, oh well, now I've eaten, and so my fast is already broken. So then they started to eat on purpose. In this case, qada will only be wajib, and they will not need to do any kind of kafara. A person thought that it was subh sadiq, meaning it was the time for fajr, it was imsak, or the fajr time began, and in reality it hadn't occurred yet. So he carried on having sihri, but then later on he found out that it was actually after subh sadiq when he was eating. In that case, qada will be wajib, and the fast is now gone. So he thought that the fajr time hasn't kicked in yet, but he thought, I've got time, and he started to eat. So later on during the day, he said, I was lucky, I started eating at this time, and someone says, but that time it was already subh sadiq, and then you check, and you've been confused about the timing itself. So in that case, you will still have to do qada, because you were conscious about fasting, you were eating on purpose, but you just got confused of the time. So now you will only be now you are only required to do the qada, and you are not required to do the kafara. Similarly, a person thought that the sun had set due to it being cloudy or dusty, or his watch was broken, his battery was flat of his phone, he couldn't see the time, and he broke his fast. Later on he found out that the sun had actually not set at that time, or someone told him, or the time just kicked in later on. And this could be, he heard the adhan, or he was sleeping, I don't know, a lot of things can happen. So in that case, he will only have to do qada, and he will not have to do any kafara, but qada will be wajib upon this person. Now, that same thing is that if a person breaks his fast intentionally outside of Ramadan, in other normal days, not in the month of Ramadan, he was fasting and he broke it intentionally, now he will only have to do qada, he will not have to do kafara. Now, cleaning the teeth with toothpaste or tooth powder is makruh. However, if some of it goes down the throat, the fast will now be broken and qada will be wajib. Similarly, if a person was sleeping and he was lying next to his wife, and they started to kiss one another, or hug one another, and that caused him to ejaculate, in that case he will not have to do kafara, only qada will be sufficient, and the qada is wajib upon him. Similarly, breaking one's fast is permissible if one has full belief that completing this fast will cause the illness or sickness to become severe, and it would become prolonged, and his health will worsen. In that case, if a person had to break his fast because of the following reasons, then because of the mentioned reasons, then qada will only be wajib, and he will not have to do any kafara. Similarly, a fly went down the throat. And this happens a lot in countries where they're riding motorbikes without their helmets on, and he was talking or something, or from the wind, a mosquito or a fly or something went down the throat, or smoke or dust went down the throat on its own. In such cases, the fast will not break. However, if one does intentionally, people are silly, they can do many things, and you would be amazed at the amount of things that people do. The fast will break and qada will be wajib. Also, the fast will break if one burns incense or oud, bukhur, in some places we say, and sniffs it while having it close to them. So someone burns some bukhur and oud to make the house smell nice, but he puts it close to his nose and he's sniffing it all in, smoke on purpose. In that case, the qada will then be wajib upon him, and he will not have to do kafara. Someone ate a pebble or a piece of steel, etc., meaning such a thing that is not eaten to nourish the body, or neither it is medicinal, then the fast is broken. Kafara will not become wajib, but qada will need to be made. Similarly with plastic and stuff, there are people who are that they will do things. We've had a person ask a question about an autistic kid. He wasn't really that bad, but he had some form of autism. So he was he was chewing on this rubber toy, but then he not accidentally, meaning he just thought it would be fun to swallow it to see what happened, but then he swallowed it. So in that case, the child was well aware that he was fasting, but due to autism, he just has certain habits that he couldn't live with, or it was hard for him to control. So in that case, when things like this happen, now because he ate plastic, he does not have to do kafara, and you never know if his autism is cured, if he has a sickness that was temporary or whatever reason. So Islam gives solutions. Islam gives the Sharia gives us a complete knowledge, so there's no ifs and buts later on. Kafara only becomes wajib when a fast is broken during Ramadan. So kafara does not become wajib if someone broke a fast outside of Ramadan purposely. In whatever way it was broken, if it is the qada fast, even if it is the qada fast of Ramadan. So because he's doing the qada of it outside of Ramadan, so any fast which is done outside of Ramadan, there's only qada for it, there's no kafara. Kafara only happens for the fasts that are broken purposely in the month of Ramadan, and which we will inshallah discuss later on. The use of an inhaler, that also breaks the fast, and only qada will be wajib. So if someone has some kind of need to use an inhaler, and they're not going to do it for fun, but if someone did use it, then that will break his fast. And if someone has an extreme illness where they have to use it constantly, then they should not fast in the first place, because they're at risk and their health should be prioritized. Now, if medicine or something wet is applied on the inside of the anus, then the fast will break. Qada will only be wajib. So as we said, if someone gets a colonoscopy or any other thing, there's also checks that certain doctors do to check for tumors and cancer, where they insert the finger to see how much room they have before they would operate. In that case, that would also break the fast, and one should be well aware of that. Masturbating also breaks the fast. If someone masturbated, which is haram regardless, but if someone did do it, their fast will now break, but there will be no kafara. So Islam, when we say something that this does, it doesn't mean that these things become permissible. All we're trying to say is that it being haram is a different mas'ala, but if it was done, is it connected to another mas'ala? So yes, it is connected. If someone did masturbate, obviously that is haram, but because it is linked with now a fast, so the fast will break. But just so we know that there's no kafara on it, there's only qada wajib on it. To get an enema procedure done, so if anyone had an enema procedure done, this will also break the fast, and qada will be wajib, and they are not required to do a kafara.